Hello, and welcome to another episode of MetalshubTalks with me, Samir Jaber. Today, we will talk about one of the most fundamental aspects of raw material trading, and that is managing relationships with counterparties. And we will look at how this works on the Metalshub platform today. Now, relationships are central to almost every transaction, but the way they are managed across teams and systems is not always aligned with how commercial workflows actually operate. So, today we want to take a closer look at how relationship data is handled in practice, where the main challenges lie, and what it means to bring more structure into this part of the workflow. And to help us explore that, I'm joined by my colleague Gaurav Pathak, Senior Product Manager at Metalshub. Gaurav leads the development of digital solutions that support procurement, sales, and trading workflows, such as the relationships feature that we will talk about today. And he specializes in product strategy, roadmap development, and agile product delivery for Metalshub. So, Gaurav, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Metalshub Talks.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks, Amir.
Awesome, fantastic. Now, to the audience, we will also engage with you throughout the webinar, so feel free to do so with us as well. So there's the chat section where you could introduce yourself, share where you're joining us from, what you're expecting to do, and then we'll also share a couple of poll questions with you to hear your thoughts and your insights as well. So keep an eye out for that as well. Gaurav, let's start with how this all looks in practice today, shall we? When we look at how commercial teams in this industry operate, relationships sit at the center. They determine who you can access, how you negotiate, how you respond to demand, and how you manage risk. So at the same time, the way these relationships are handled hasn't evolved at the same pace as the transactions themselves. And in most organizations, the information exists across multiple systems, right? ERP, CRM, SRM, spreadsheets, etc. And a significant part still sits with individuals. So the data is there, but it's not always accessible in a structured or consistent way across different teams. So, from your perspective, where does this create the biggest friction in day to day commercial work?
Yeah, the biggest friction, according to me, is decision making without context, as there's no single source of truth. So, as you mentioned, teams do have the data, but it's scattered across emails, Excel, ERP, CRM, SRM systems, right? So, every time like someone needs to act, they have to reconstruct the full picture manually, right? And many teams, they can be regional teams, global teams, buying teams, selling teams. They sometimes maintain their own lists, which then leads to further fragmentation. Right? For example, let's say there's a supplier to be invited, and a buyer needs to check in the ERP system whether they are approved or not, whether they are under onboarding, right? Excel for performances, emails for any interactions, right? And that slows things down and also introduces risk, right? Like inviting a blocked supplier or maybe like an underperforming counterparty, right? And that means that the process doesn't remain structured, right? So the real issue is not missing data, it's a lack of a connected, reliable view at the moment of action.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. But I mean, if we take this one step further, right? So, okay, look here, like supplier access, negotiation leverage, risk. All of these depend on relationships. How would you say the issue is, or let me rephrase? Would you say the issue is less about having relationships and more about how they are managed and accessed at the right moment?
Yeah, exactly. Like relationships, they already exist, especially in this industry, right? So in events, even like when somebody starts trading, they already know people, right? So it's not like they don't have relationships. I think the problem is that they are not operationalized inside their workflow. So things like negotiation leverage, responsiveness, risk awareness, right? They depend on individual knowledge, not system support. There's no system telling them, okay, this is where you look, or this is what you should look at. Many a times it's just like people reaching out to people, or in case they miss it, then they introduce risk or inefficiencies. Another example, like a senior buyer who's been in this industry for a fair amount of bit might know that the counterparty is risky, right? But then that insight isn't visible to the entire team or somebody who's probably just joined the organization and is evaluating an inquiry, right? So yeah, I mean, it's not only about building relationships, but it's also about making them visible, structured, and usable at the right moment.
All right, makes interesting. I mean, you see, while we talk about this, let's actually talk about relationships in Metals Hub. Then, I mean, what we're introducing here is essentially a structured layer for counterparties inside the workflow. So, looking at this and telling us from your sort of process of development of this feature, how should people think about this shift from managing transactions to managing relationships?
Yeah, that's a good question. And looking at how things have evolved inside Metals Hub, not just the industry, I think total makes sense that this shift happens, right? And the shift is from event-based thinking to more of a context-based thinking. So traditionally, teams focused on transactions, right, like sending inquiries, negotiating, closing deals, right, while relationships sat somewhere else, right, like somebody else was managing it, had an overview of it, and people were just thinking about that one event, right? Like I get the deal done and then it's over. But now every transaction is informed by the relationship context. So instead of asking, who should I invite? One might ask, okay, which relationships are relevant for this particular product with the right status, risk level? Do they all have certificates? Are they compliant, etc.? Right? Because I guess we all know that we are moving more and more towards compliance, right? And emission control and CBAM is coming into effect. So these questions are becoming more and more critical. So it basically turns relationship into like a first class object inside the workflow itself, not something that is managed outside in parallel by something else. And once you bring relationships into a workflow like that, which is then visible across teams, it starts to change, right? How teams actually prepare for a deal or execute a deal.
All right, that's an interesting point. I mean, we just also launched two questions to the audience. So have a look at the polls section. You can share with us your thoughts there. But let me try to summarize and see if I understood this well, and you could tell me, Gaurav, if I missed anything here. So if we look at the shift on this slide, right? What is changing here is that users no longer need to piece together information from different places. So instead of switching between emails, spreadsheets, or ERP systems, they have one workspace where all counterparties are structured and visible. So day to day, it becomes much easier to find the right contact, understand the relationship in a specific product context, and see the full interaction history. And that, I believe, directly improves how teams prepare for inquiries, for negotiations, because the context is already there. It's not something they have to gather manually. Um, does that summarize it well? Have I missed anything? Is that right?
Yeah, I think you've summarized it perfectly. Like I would say, on a day-to-day level, the biggest change that the users see is that they no longer have to jump between systems to manage relationships, right? The thing is, like everyone in an ideal world would want to do that, but let's be frank, right? Like if somebody is more operationally oriented, then they don't want to burn half a day like looking into different systems, getting information, reaching out to people, right? So I think that is the biggest change, that everything is brought into one structured workplace. So instead of checking emails for context, Excel for notes, ERP for status, right, reaching out to, I don't know, some CO2 emission provider, whatever, they can just go to one place, see the full picture, who the counterparty is, what products they're linked to, the status, past interactions, and yeah, just make things much faster and efficient, in my opinion. So the shift is really from manual coordination to structured, confident decision making inside the platform itself, not outside of it.
Right, right. That's great. I mean, we've outlined the shifts here conceptually. We've understood how it is and the sort of how it differs. But I think it's really comes to life when we see it in the product. So, would you like us, or would you like to walk us through how this looks inside the Metalshub platform? I can stop my screen. You can share your screen and show us how it looks on the platform itself. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Cool. Then I will start to share. Just give me a moment. Let me know if you start to see my screen.
Give it a second.
I assume you can see it, right?
Yes. Let's go.
Okay. Good. So this is the whole interface that we've built, where users can see all of their existing relationships. It basically has all the counterparties listed on the left, and on the right, then people can look at the detailed view. There are like certain filters which can be used. So if somebody wants to find like all of their ferrosilicon link counterparties, then they can use that filter. It can also be filtered across regions. So if somebody wants to know, okay, how many relationships do I have with buyers or suppliers inside Germany, let's say, right? They can use that. Risk, certificates, right? Like how many have all of those certificates, that's already possible in this view. And like without even going into details, there are certain things that we've deemed are quite critical in the flows. Certificates or any associated risks are some of them. So even on the list level, we show whether a certificate has expired or if there is some inherent risk. Of course, this is managed by whoever is managing these relationships, but you don't have to already go into a detailed view and then find out that, okay, something might happen with this particular company. Then going a bit deeper, now I will go into the detailed view of one of the companies. And this is the sort of overview or dashboard that you get, right? So I think as Samir mentioned previously, like you can also link these things to your ERP system. That's why we also store the ERP ID in case that matching needs to be done. And you can see additional details over here. So whether there are any associated risks, are all the certificates up to date, who's the contact person in case you want to reach out for onboarding, for further information, right? So you get the company's phone number and fax. And then you can see certain things on top. For example, how many certificates are there, whether they're REACH compliant for the product that they buy or sell, and whether there are any additional documents. You can, of course, like expand this to get further information, right? But in this dashboard sort of view, you can already do a quick visual check. And in case you find that something is not right or maybe more information is needed, then you can just request more information from this counterparty. So in case like a certificate has expired, you can just write them a message over here, like, can you upload the latest certificate, or or can you update your REACH registration and stuff. So this is the dashboard view, which gives like relationship managers, compliance managers, a quick picture. But when it comes to operational side, that's when the product tabs comes into picture. So we mentioned previously that that we don't just leave relationships on the company level. We drill down a level deeper and then allow users to manage all of this per product specifications that they have. So to this supplier, I've already assigned some of the products, which means that this company has already been registered for these months. And now it's up to me whether I want to start the onboarding flow, can already approve them, right, and so forth. And we can always add more products to this portfolio, right, by selecting it from the drop down. And all of these linked products can be managed on a supplier level. So if I find that this is some silicon producer, right, and I should not have like Chrome linked to it, then I can just use bulk actions and like remove all of them in one go, right? And then the supplier now is only managing the silicon portfolio. Then there are some other bulk actions that we allow, which is first of all status, and second contact persons. So status, like I mentioned, could be for a certain step in or during the onboarding flow. It's fully customizable. So whatever you see here, it's not hard coded. If instead of new approved onboarding, maybe there are, I don't know, 5 different status that somebody would want to have. For example, approved for sample testing or documents pending, right? All of those status can be created custom to a company, and those ones can be used instead. And like I said, like we do allow bulk actions from this view. So again, like if onboarding for say for a supplier for these 3 product was successful, then again you don't need to take action per line item here. You can just click all of them, change the status from onboarding to approved, and yeah, it's done. Same with contact person. So let's say contact person for these 2 needs to change. You can select, yeah, whoever you want to, and then it can be managed here. And we understand like compliance and auditability is a big topic now, and nobody would want to like have all of this and still go back to their emails for any meeting notes or any conversations that happen. So we also give users this notes section where they can just upload the meeting notes over here, or they can leave notes for some of the other users in the company. So they also have like access to all the information, and then they're also not waiting for somebody to like provide some meeting notes or some documentation or anything as such. And all the actions that are performed within this relationship module are tracked. So you get an activity log which tells you who did the action, what action was taken, and the date and timestamp. So further down the line, for example, if I want to see like who sanctioned this company or who moved the status from no risk to sanction, I can already see it. And if any action needs to be taken or somebody asks, okay, why this happened, then I can always reach out to my superior or like an audit manager and then give them the full picture. That makes sense?
I mean, absolutely. It's I
Yeah.
think this really gives a good picture there. What other details would you like to show us as well, Gaurav, in the tool?
Yeah. So I think there are 2 things that that would paint the complete picture, right? So like we said, like all of this can be managed from the platform. This is how we manage it. There's also a product view. So if like somebody's more comfortable managing relationships on a product level instead of on a company level, they can also use it. So instead of having the question of, okay, how many products this counterparty is linked to, if the question is something like, okay, how many counterparties do I have for a particular product, they can always switch to product view, and then yeah, they see the data differently. And it's, well, if it makes sense, it's a bit better to manage. But apart from this, we also mentioned, right, like there are 2 more things. One is that, and as we also said previously, yes, relationships do exist outside of the platform, but now since there's price pressure, like a lot of new developments have been happening, a lot of companies are also looking for new business, right? They want to improve their bottom line. They also want to improve like the liquidity or the amount of offers that they get. They also want to like move out of their geographies and find new companies, and that's something that this also facilitates. So we have this add relationship feature here, which gives you basically an overview of all the platform participants. Uh, let's take this example over here. So there are these 5 counterparties which I can add to my relationship. There are certain companies that we also recommend. So in this case, maybe in the past when I was running a tender, I received an offer from this company, but I didn't add them to my relationship list. we already recommend them, right? Like you should probably add them to your list because you received an offer from them previously. But otherwise, you can use our region filters, or like whether you're looking for a buyer or a seller, you can just search and yeah, then just pick the company. And this is also sort of how you can start the onboarding. So in the next step, if there's any associated risk, you can mention it. You can populate products from offers, or you can populate them manually. So let's say producer D is also already known to supply ferro titanium, and producer E is more for, say, alumina portfolio. Yeah. Um, so yeah, in this onboarding form, I can already fill all of that in, go to next, save, and you're done. So you already see like the relationship is already created with these three companies. So the onboarding flow from here is also yeah, super straightforward to manage. If further down the line the status changes, so if somebody wants to then start onboarding this particular counterparty, they can manage the status from here. So this is how somebody can find new business. And then comes the main part, right? Like after seeing all of this, you might be like, yeah, looks good, easy to manage, but I'm here for closing deals. I'm here for negotiating and comparing offers, right? Like what benefits am I getting if I start to use this feature? So as I mentioned, we maintain status of counterparty per product, and this is reflected when you are creating inquiries. So now I'm in the core trading flow. The first step is usually creation of an inquiry. I've saved one as a draft. Didn't want to spend too much time creating one from scratch. But if I go to the invitation section of the inquiry, then I can already see that some of the companies are already in the recipient list. So what we do here is basically all the companies that are approved or fully approved or preferred for a certain product. In this case, the product would be the one that I'm buying. So high carbon ferrochrome 60% for this particular product. I've already, or the listing is already pre-filled with the approved counterparty. So you don't have to like think about, okay, which companies should definitely be invited, or in case you miss inviting one of the companies and then are wondering like, why am I not getting offers? Or somebody with whom you had a relationship with is now complaining, right? Like, why didn't you invite me on this tender, right? So all of those risks are mitigated. And we don't restrict users from using like these companies. We actually show the entire, not the entire list, but all the companies who have relationship with my company. We don't pre-fill them automatically because some might be new, some might be under onboarding. But if somebody feels like they should be invited by default, then or not by default but manually, then yeah, there's always that possibility. So that's the first place where relationship affects the trading flow, which is yeah, who's getting invited. And the second is when somebody is actually actively negotiating, which is on compare offers. So this is the negotiation step where the inquiry owner or the listing owner might be evaluating all the offers, right? So in this case, there are um, yeah, 3 offers, right? And here we can already see, right? Like this company, example company, is under onboarding. So it's not yet fully approved. So maybe I should be mindful if I'm asking for full deliveries from this particular company, right? Because I'm not entirely sure if I will get the right material, the right quality or not. Maybe closing with like a test delivery might make more sense. The second one is fully approved for transactions. So this is like my safest counterparty, right? And the third one is fully approved for transaction, but somebody has flagged it as a supply chain risk in the relationship. So when you are negotiating, you can already see like bits and pieces of that information. You can, of course, like click here and then find out more details about the company, right? You can see, again, certificates, for example, right? But this already gives you yeah, the right information that you would need before concluding a deal and de-risking yourself as much as you can later. Because we've heard in the past, like this information sat somewhere else with somebody else, probably somebody senior. The deal was closed, and then questions were asked, right? Like, why wasn't this flagged? Why did we move ahead with them, knowing what we know now? So yeah, this is what we meant, like how it is ingrained with the operational flow itself. It's not something just living outside of it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that, Gaurav. This is really helpful. Just a quick question, and I think it's also mentioned in the chat.
Hmm.
We're seeing this from the perspective of a buyer or purchaser. Uh,
Hmm.
is it at all different from the supplier side?
No, it's exactly similar. So we don't differentiate whether it's a buyer or a seller. Yeah, you can do pretty much everything. What we do um, control or manage is who is allowed to do what on the platform, right? So there are certain companies who can do both buying and selling. There are certain companies who only buy on the platform. So yeah, we just don't want to overload people giving them all the lists. So if there are cases where a company wants to buy as well as sell on the platform, they would get like a separate seller list and a separate buyer list. If they just want to do one action, then they will get one list, but we don't differentiate.
All right, so the tool is sort of agnostic to who is
Yeah,
using it, just manages the
yeah,
relationship regardless. Uh,
exactly.
Fantastic. I mean, this is really helpful, and I mean, we only have a couple of minutes left to finish, but uh, let me try to summarize it, and you tell me if I'm learning well from you
Mhm.
today. So what I'm seeing here is we have less switching between tools. We have context directly within inquiries, within negotiations. We have a reduced dependency on individuals, on manual work, which increases efficiency. And
Yeah.
we have more structure. We have a shared visibility. We have an audit trail, and it's all in one workspace. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome,
Exactly.
awesome. Then, I mean, this is really helpful, and I hope it's helpful for the audience watching us live, and also for whoever is going to be watching us later on demand. Maybe I can add one question that I received before we go offline here, and that is, how does the relationships feature differ from existing SRM systems that we already use, or I would add CRM systems for suppliers as well. And I think, I mean, you just explained it, right? We just sort of highlighted it. The product level relationships, not just the company level. The sort of building it into transactions, not just the contact
Yeah.
management. What else can you tell us?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that this is industry specific. So there are a lot of tools out there, but they're generic, right? So there are a lot of fields that are very specific to this particular industry, to the context, right? And then yeah, sometimes like too much can overwhelm the users. So there are certain tools who basically allow users to do everything, but then users always complain, right? Like it's so complex, or we need like a separate admin just to set things up for us. I think the biggest benefit that we have here is like it's tailored to the context, it's tailored to the industry, it's not overwhelming the users, right? But it's also like doing everything that the user would want to do. That's one thing. And the second thing is shared network. So like we said previously, right, it's not something that is being managed in parallel. It's ingrained with the trading flow. So you have both of them within the platform. It's not like I'm using tool one to run like my operational things, to negotiate, to close deals, and then there's a separate tool outside of that where I'm managing relationships, right? Because until those two tools speak, it's not creating like the best benefit. So the focus here is to get rid of silos and sort of create an ecosystem where like every feature talks to each other and makes things better for the user.
I think that sums it up quite nicely. So, Gaurav, thank you for providing fantastic insight into the feature itself and into relationships as an aspect of trading as well. I think it helps a lot. And of course, there's a lot more to come. So we will keep sort of this use case and the and product overview series going. So to everybody in attendance, keep an eye out for our next episodes. And thank you for joining us here at MetalshubTalks. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.